Metals Inc. It trades on the TSXV under the symbol CCCM and on the OTCQB under the symbol CUAUF. It's a mineral exploration company focused on creating substantive value for its shareholders through the discovery and development of large copper and gold deposits. Please welcome President, CEO, and Director Daniel Symons. Welcome to the conference, Daniel. Happy to have you today.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for having me.
All right, the floor is yours, and just call me back when you're ready for questions.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Anna. And thanks to everyone joining to hear the C3 Metals story. It's our first time doing a conference like this with emerging growth, and we're very excited to be meeting some new people today and investors today to hear the C3 story. I will be making some forward-looking statements today based on the best available information that we have available today. I think it's important to anyone evaluating investments in the mineral exploration space to understand who the people are behind the company and what they've been involved in. And we're very fortunate at C3 Metals to have a very well-established board with a strong track record of creating value, led by our non-executive chairman, Tony Manini, who began his career with Rio Tinto. He's a geologist by trade, but very entrepreneurial. He ended up pulling an asset out of Rio Tinto, which became a major gold discovery in Laos, built the first mine in Laos under the company Oxiana Gold, later merged that company with another company to form Oz Minerals, which was then subsequently acquired by BHP for $8 billion. Tony went on to co-found EMR Capital, which is now the largest natural resources private equity fund in Australia. The gentleman who actually built the Sepon gold mine and has built several other mines is founded the firm Ausenco, which is one of the leading design engineering firms in our industry. Mika, also on our board. People like Yale Simpson, who built and sold two junior companies to majors. Fernando Pickman, who's the top mining lawyer in our view in Peru. And Kimberly Ann, who's an entrepreneurial capital markets person in the mining industry as well. The people running the company day to day on the management team, it's myself and my business partner, Steve Hughes. For myself, I have a financial background. This is my 19th year in the mining industry. I've been involved, about half my career has been focused on the exploration through development side of the business, and about half focused on operations and building out multi-mine operating mine companies. I've been involved in M&A transactions, corporate development, investor relations, and now running C3 and making sure we're well funded for and executing on our business plan. We're fortunate to have someone like Steve Hughes in our VP exploration role. I always say for a company of our size and scale, the VP exploration role is the most important. And Steve has been involved in the discovery and or delineation of over 34 billion pounds of copper and 47 million ounces of gold over 14 projects. So a very strong track record of success. And, you know, it's not just the internal team, it's our external shareholders that provide the capital support for us. We're a little unique for a company of our size. Our market cap today is approximately 50 million US, but we're very unique in the fact that we have institutional ownership, strategic investors and insiders holding 63% of the company. So over 60% of the shares are very tightly held. You can see the list of the institutional ownership here. 100 million shares outstanding, 14 million Canadian in cash, 10 million US, 50 million market cap. So very well funded for what we're doing, with one analyst covering us so far in Lauren McConnell at Paradigm Capital. I think it's a pretty simple value proposition of what we're trying to do here in the discovery potential. And we're all about maximizing discovery potential. For 65 million approximate market cap or 50 million US market cap, we've put together two district scale copper gold properties in both Peru and Jamaica. Combined, they're over 500 square kilometers. We've identified over 65 mineral prospects that warrant drill testing. To date, we've just systematically drill tested one of those prospects to a mineral resource level, which gave us a pit-constrained, measured and indicated resource of 52 million tons of 0.5 copper and 0.2 gold, which equates to an in-situ in-pit resource of 570 million pounds of copper and 326,000 ounces of gold. You know, we're a little unique in our strategy, where most junior exploration companies are focused on single assets. We understand the risk in exploration, so we take a portfolio approach. We think we're good at identifying early stage opportunities consolidating district scale positions that will be meaningful enough to major companies. And then we do all the grunt work with communities, governments, consolidating large positions in collecting all the geochemical, geophysical data, doing all the boots on the ground geological mapping before we get into drilling. And then we want to evaluate what looks like low-hanging fruit. And usually when you do that through your first phase drill program, one of three things is going to happen. In the worst case scenario, and it does happen sometimes because this is exploration and it's a high-risk business, is your geologic theory doesn't hold together. And it's really important to understand, just as important to understand when to stop investing in a project if it's not going to become a mine, and when to continue. And if that should happen, we then look to divest of the asset and recycle whatever capital you can get back into the business. The best case scenario is you evaluate what looks like low-hanging fruit, and you end up with very good grade right near surface, and then you just go drill the snot out of it and add a lot of value for shareholders over multiple years. And then sometimes what can happen is what we saw with our Bellows Gate project in Jamaica, where it looks like a very sizable target. It looks very interesting, but we could just see the capital profile of what was going to need to be done was a little beyond what we felt was responsible for us from a corporate level equity dilution standpoint. So we looked to bring in a major partner, and we ran a behind the scenes process throughout last year. Very pleased to announce just February this year that we've entered into an agreement where Freeport-McMoRan, one of the largest copper producing companies in the world, is identified the opportunity to come in and earn into our Bellows Gate project in Jamaica, where they're going to invest up to $75 million US to earn a 75% stake in that project. We're fully carried until that earn-in is complete, after which we would fund each share pro rata. But it's we'll get more into the Bellows Gate project in a moment, but it's a major endorsement for a company like Freeport. You have to think about who they are and what type of project scale that they need to find to be able to move the needle for them at a market cap of about $50 billion. They operate three of the top 20 copper mines in the world. One actually of which is just to the south of us in our asset in Peru, ironically, even though they're coming in and earning in on what we're doing in Jamaica. But just last year, they did 10 billion in adjusted EBITDA, 7.2 billion in operating cash flow. So obviously a large company looking for large deposits. And then you say, well, why are big companies coming all the way down to early stage exploration to identify these opportunities? And the reality is this is not C3 Metals data. This is S&P Global data. Major copper discoveries are in decline. We peaked in 2007. The last 18 years, we're just not making the discoveries that we used to. So we're going to have a major supply issue as we see accelerating demand. And to put this into perspective, over the last decades, over the last 10 years, there's been over 46,000 copper exploration holes reported publicly. Of these, only 0.5% are indicative of large open pit copper potential. And that means you would have a grade profile, copper grade of greater than 0.3%. You'd have your intercepts starting within the first 100 meters of surface and a minimum intercept width of 250 meters. And over the last decade, the last 10 years, only 20 projects have at least 3 drill holes that meet that parameter. And our Bellows Gate project is one of those projects, so it screens very well. I'll take some time now to go through the actual assets in a high level detail for you. I do think it's important because we're the first mover at C3 Metals into Jamaica to give you some background on Jamaica as a jurisdiction. I know we all think of Jamaica as a place to go for vacation, and we probably have images of sitting on the beach with a glass of some rum punch in our hand with the sun setting over the ocean. But you may be surprised to learn that mining's the number 2 industry in Jamaica, very close second to tourism. And this is derived by a very large bauxite mining industry that's been going for nearly 75 years. And today there's annual exports of $500 million to $600 million US. Jamaica is the number 8th largest bauxite producer in the world by jurisdiction. There's an alumina refinery in country. Today, between the bauxite industry and all the limestone quarry type open pits, there's over 150 open pits on the island today. And when we think about, because the bauxite industry has been going for nearly 75 years, and these are finite resources, when we talk to the ministry in Jamaica, their mandate is to promote and encourage investment in non-bauxite metallic minerals as a means of diversifying the mineral sector. Because if you're looking at finite resources that, every day in mining, when we're producing minerals, unless we find more through exploration or we acquire more, we're one day closer to putting our own selves out of business. And at some point, the bauxite industry will, it has been slowing down already, and at some point it will wind down completely. And what the government's looking to do is to replace that, and with the skill sets in country, with other minerals, and that's where we at C3 Metals come in, because we identified, if you look throughout the Caribbean, you have Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, all with large copper gold deposits, the most notable being the Pueblo Viejo mine operated by Barrick in the Dominican Republic. And Jamaica has just been completely underexplored, despite the fact that it's a very similar geologic setting all through the Caribbean. So we came in and we picked up just over 200 square kilometers or 20,000 hectares of mineral exploration licenses. I would have you note here where we've picked these up. You're in the center of the island, right along that Crawl River fault zone, which is very important because within that fault, that's where you have your best chances of success along that zone that bisects the island. For copper gold mineralization. When you get outside of this fault, the limestone cover can be multiple hundreds of meters thick, hence why there's so much limestone exported out of Jamaica as well. But C3 Metals were the first mover into Jamaica, and then we were followed by a private company founded by a local ultra high net worth individual, Geophysics Jamaica Limited, that acquired just over 4,000 square kilometers of mineral exploration licenses. And we built a relationship with Geophysics, and where you can see our main ridge project here, which is just the farthest left yellow mineral concession that we're showing on this map. It was clear that what Geophysics had and what we had there was some geologic synergies on an epithermal goldfish system where it looked like we each had part of it. So last March, just about a year ago, we announced a partnership where we each contributed some ground. We put it into a straight 50-50 joint venture, of which C3 Metals is the operator. And then 2 months later, so about 11 months from ago, last May, Barrick Gold and Geophysics made an announcement that Barrick Gold was the first major coming into Jamaica, and they're earning in, if you read that press release dated May 1st, 2024, Barrick is coming in to earn 80% on 4,000 square kilometers in Jamaica. And then we just announced last February that Freeport is coming in, and Freeport's going to earn in on 130 square kilometers of our Bellows Gate project. So what started as us being the first mover into this area and identifying an opportunity, we now see two major companies that are attracted to the jurisdiction with a supportive government, a very strong rule of law, mining law in place, and the very underexplored, and the opportunity for major sizable deposits is what's brought these majors into the country. You should be asking, who's Geophysics? It's not a very well-known company because it's a private company outside of Jamaica, but it's very well known within Jamaica as the largest mineral tenement holder. You can see myself here in the picture with Bobby Stewart. Bobby is the founder and president of Geophysics. He's the eldest son of Butch Stewart, the Stewart family being absolute hospitality and industrial powerhouse throughout the Caribbean. You may recognize the brand that Bobby's father founded the company Sandals. If you think about Sandals resorts or beaches, resorts throughout the Caribbean. And it's a really, really good working relationship where our team provides a lot of the technical expertise that we need through mineral exploration and development, where Geophysics has very solid in-country relationships that we can leverage. So if we zoom in on our area here in the center of the island, where we've identified over a 30-kilometer strike extent, 16 porphyry and 40 epithermal targets. What you see outlined in the blue on the left-hand side is our partnership with Geophysics, the Superblock, and everything else on the right is what Freeport's earning into. And it's not like there wasn't mining here in the past. You can see in the bottom right, there was, when the British had first come and colonized, there were several historical mines being operated, where the British were mining and shipping copper back to England. But the only modern day metallic mine outside of the bauxite industry was a past producing gold mine called the Penance Gold Mine. And prior to doing the deal with Geophysics last year, we didn't have exposure to the mine, this past producing mine itself. We surrounded it on three sides. And by doing this deal, we gained 50% exposure to this past producing gold mine, where the previous operator put a shallow pit on one epithermal vein. We know that there's historical drill results outside of the pit. What really caught our attention, even though it was a small resource and it only operated for a couple of years, was the historic resource grade was 20 grams per ton, very high grade. And by putting these properties together into this 50-50 joint venture, we've now identified a 5-kilometer gold trend through the soil geochemistry and the geophysical data. The Penance pit sits right in the middle of that. And this 5-kilometer trend remains wide open in either direction. But we have enough data now that we've just started drilling. I believe it's the first drill program since 2004, since the Penance mine closed after operating for 2 years. So we've started drilling. We're on hole number 1 today, and we look forward to being able to report some results on that here later in the second quarter. So that's what we're doing in the Superblock project that you see on the left side of your screen. On the right-hand side, what Freeport's coming in to earn into, we've identified an 18-kilometer strike extent of very strong copper and gold geochemistry in both soil and rock geochemistry. And all those stars you see on your screen, those are all porphyry prospects. So we've identified 14 porphyry prospects over 18 kilometers. To date, we've drill tested at C3 about 4 of those porphyries in a 4-kilometer area. And if we zoom in on those, we've got long, broad intercepts averaging about 0.5% to 0.6% copper equivalent, starting right at surface or down to 60 meters below surface. But when you're looking at a new and emerging belt and porphyries, they're going to be drill intensive. We will require some deeper holes. We thought it was best to manage the equity corporate level dilution risk and bring in a major partner, and hence the deal with Freeport. We liken this to what we think's going on. We think we're high level in the system, just like a Filo de Sol deposit what Filo Mining had in Argentina that was just acquired last summer for 4.5 billion Canadian dollars in a joint bid by BHP and Lundin Mining. And if we take the Filo deposit on the left just to craft the geometry of that deposit, so we capture the tonnage of rock, and if we were to move it over to Bellas Gate, Jamaica, you can see how it fits within that 4-kilometer area we're drilling, and we have 18 kilometers of this to go after. So it's very exciting what we're dealing with here. Filo was known for over 20 years and very low grade near surface in the first 500 meters. With modern day geophysics, they vectored in on the high grade core of the system and started pumping out long, broad intercepts of over 1% copper equivalent. And that's what really changed the game for them and led to the bid by BHP and Lundin Mining. When we look at what we've been doing at Bellas Gate here, we think we've essentially been drilling into the fingers or the hydrothermal channels of the mineralization coming up on a much larger porphyry system at depth. And we intend to capture the right data and geophysical data to support some deep drilling that we're going to get going there. So that's the plan of what we're doing in partnership with Freeport. And then not to be forgotten and lost, because this in its own right it has a lot of value, is what we're doing in Peru. Peru is the second largest producer of copper in the world by jurisdiction. It's definitely a mining country and has been for multiple decades. We've assembled one of the largest positions for a junior, over 300 square kilometers just south of Cusco. We're less than 45 kilometers from MMG's Las Bambas mine, which is one of the top copper producing mines in the world. We're less than 45 kilometers from Hudbay Minerals, Constancia and Pampacancha mines. Further to the southeast, you have Antapaccay that's operated by Glencore. Further to the south of that, if we were to zoom out on this picture, you actually have Freeport operating the Cerro Verde mine, which, as I mentioned earlier, is their third largest mine in their portfolio. So if we look at all the operating mines around us, 2 of which are within 45 kilometers of us, all, if you look at what's been mined and what's left to be mined, are over 1 billion tons of ore. And that's why you see companies like BHP here in the light blue and Rio Tinto in the dark blue, as well as First Quantum Minerals coming into this area. And we've assembled a very large position because we identified 13 skarn prospects on the eastern side of the property. Now, none of these looked like they're going to be too big, all 40 to 60 million tons. We've only drilled one of the first of these 13 skarns to get that measured and indicated resource and that in situ resource of 570 million pounds of copper and 326,000 ounces of gold, which if you look at that plus our cash on hand today really justifies a lot of our valuation today. But what really got us excited was a Khaleesi project on the western side that took some time to consolidate and put together. This has never been drill tested. It's an opportunity, if we zoom in on this Khaleesi project, for a brand new maiden discovery where all these major mines are formed along this belt, this world-class copper producing belt, between the contact between what you see here in the teal, which is the limestone, and the purple, which you see is the batholith. And we see porphyry mineralization outcropping. We see skarn mineralization outcropping. The marble, the limestone's been completely marbleized with suggested heat source. We came to an agreement with the indigenous community on a surface agreement just last August. We came in, ran the soil geochem, and now we get excited about copper in soils of 300 ppm. And you can see here on the right-hand side of your screen, top to bottom, we have a zone of 1.9 kilometers by 650 meters, where the northern part of that zone is averaging 650 ppm copper in soil, which is double what gets us excited. The southern part of that zone is averaging 950 ppm copper, which is triple what gets us excited. And then over the skarn area, in a 400 by 470 meter area, we're averaging 1260 ppm, which is quadruple what gets us excited. So this looks like a very extensive system. The geophysics that we've run, on the top, you see the magnetics. That's a bird's eye view. You can clearly see where we know the skarn outcrops, where the skarn is. You can see where it looks like the porphyry sitting right next to it. And then if we take a slice along that black line where you see A to A dash, and look at a cross section. So now we're looking at it from beneath the surface, and we look at the IP chargeability data. Clearly two chargeable zones picking up the sulfide minerals. When we look at the IP resistivity data, low in the skarn, high in the porphyry, as you would suspect. So we intend to be drilling on this here by the middle of this year. We're fully funded for all of our programs. The grades we're seeing at surface are, now these are rock chip samples, they're not drill holes. This property's never seen a drill hole. We're going to be the first ones putting drill holes into it, but we've done all the grunt work to consolidate this. We're going to be drilling this ourselves. So, one of the catalysts that we have at C3, we're sitting with a strong cash balance that on a very, very oversubscribed financing that we just closed March 19th. We've just commenced drilling on one of three projects, and we expect to be drilling on all three by the middle of this year, of which one's being funded by Freeport, one's funded 50% us, 50% geophysics, and then we're funding 100% of our Khaleesi project in Peru. I think that bringing in a partner like Freeport speaks to the quality of the assets that we put together and the technical team we have. And it's a diversified approach, and we're maximizing discovery potential for our shareholders, where you think about the second half of this year and the amount of news flow we're going to have with drills turning on three projects by the middle of this year. It's pretty exciting with all the data we collected to get to the point that we have. And to me, meeting you all today, really what I think is the right time, because a lot of the de-risking work of collecting that technical data, putting property packages together, working with communities to get agreements in place, and working with governments, having major companies come in and do substantial due diligence to endorse our projects, I think that that bodes well for where we are today. So with that, I'll turn it back to Anna and see if we have time for a couple questions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Daniel. Fascinating. I was recently in Jamaica, and I wondered, what is their industry outside of tourism? So this was good to hear. Those countries need industry. So let's jump in. Jay asks if you can talk about local government in Peru and Jamaica. Are they friendly? Do they have a stake? How does it work with them?
Yeah, so in like every country in the world, there's a royalty regime and corporate tax rate on production of minerals. In Jamaica, it's because of the bauxite industry has been in decline and reserves are not being replaced. There's a real big push to see other minerals come up, and very supportive government to see that move forward. In Peru, it's very clearly a mining friendly jurisdiction, with mining being such a strong industry, such a big contributor to GDP in Peru. It is very, very well established. There is a bit more bureaucracy where it takes a little bit more time to to move things forward from a permitting perspective, both for exploration and exploitation in Peru. But it's one of those things where, if you follow the prescriptive formula and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to be okay. So we've been doing everything that we need to do, and now we're in position to be drilling in both locations.
And Jean says, speaking of low-hanging fruit, what type of investment are you putting into infrastructure, roads, water, electric, accommodations?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate in Jamaica. We can drive because it's a relatively small island, and where we are on the island with our projects, while it's sparsely populated, you do have little remote villages, mostly subsistence type farming, but there are roads directly to very close to where we need to be, and then we just cut in drill trails for us. The Pennants mine, obviously being a past producing mine, had all the infrastructure put in. So we're only an hour and 45-minute drive from Kingston, which is an international airport, and the main capital where the government is. Very easy access. You have deep sea ports for shipping in Jamaica, so you're set up very well. In Peru, we also can piggyback off of, we have multiple operating mines very close to us. We have 2 roads accessing right to our property today. There's grid power within 45 kilometers. So we're all in the same area. This is a world-class copper producing belt, very well known in Peru. So we're fortunate of where we've picked up these, where there's very strong infrastructure already in place.
Perfect. Ken asks, does Freeport have an equity stake? And if not, would they consider it?
Something that I don't want to get too detailed on, but these things do come up with major companies' equity stakes. At this current, our valuation prior to doing the deal with Freeport, and then subsequently the data that we've been getting out on what we're doing in Peru and on the Superblock project in Jamaica, we were sitting last year around a 15-20 million US market cap. And when we were looking at equity stakes, even if someone came in and took a 10% stake, it just wasn't going to be the right number of capital for what we needed. So we really had to see the investment at the project level, although there has been interest in equity stakes by majors into C3. We've tried to keep that clean for future competitive tension. But it is something that we always evaluate when we're going to be raising dollars. Does it make sense, and what's the right time to bring it? But for now, it's the stake that Freeport's earning in on is at the project level.
Tom says copper is bouncing off its 2-year low and looks bullish. So what does copper have to be priced at to offset production costs?
Yeah, so we're a ways from production right now. We're in the exploration stage. So if you think of that Lassonde curve, we're right at the cusp of discovery. We've have enough drilling now in Jamaica to know that we think we're onto something. We're going to need more data through drilling to really confirm that, but it's enough that when we went out for that process, we had multiple major companies interested. We selected Freeport as our partner. In Peru, the data suggests that it looks like a very sizable prospect, just at Khaleesi, just similar to the other mines that we see in the belt. So, because what we're looking at, the size and scale and grade potential of what we're already seeing, highly likely at today's and lower prices, you would have economic viability if you have enough tonnage. And that's a question now. We need to get out with the drill bit and make sure that we have the tonnage, because certainly what we see with what we've done at Bellas Gate in Jamaica, that looks like the grade potential's there.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Chris asks, is Geophysics an equity partner?
So Geophysics itself is not an equity partner, but the founder of Geophysics is a strategic shareholder, Bobby Stewart. He owns 5% of our company. He came in through a private placement in November of 2023, and then he's maintained his pro rata during subsequent placements that we've done. And he's a very, very supportive shareholder. We're obviously very aligned on the success of what we're doing. We have a partnership on a project, but by coming in as an equity partner and 5% ownership stake, he then has exposure to C3's entire portfolio.
And with that said, last question from Paul. With Geophysics and Barrick coming to town, what does this do for permits and or other red tape to cut through? Does it bring more officials to the area for quicker turnaround?
Yeah, in Jamaica, we haven't seen any problem. We get drill permits typically within 2 months. And in Jamaica, they're for your entire concession, unlimited drill holes, unlimited drill pads. And the permits it's 5 years before you renew, and renewals are very easy. So again, I think because you have a declining bauxite industry and think about if you have a population of 3.2 million people, your second largest industry is in decline, and eventually will wind down. That's just the nature of finite resources. What are you going to do? It would be an absolute, economic storm to lose that. So there's a real push to be supportive by the government to make sure that that companies are acting responsibly and doing it in a responsible way. But if they are, let's cut through whatever we need to cut through it and make sure these projects are moving forward. We've never had an issue on that.
Wonderful. Well, Daniel, thank you so much. We have more questions we'll send to you so you can follow up on your own, but we appreciate you being on this conference and we would love to follow along your journey.
Perfect. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everyone.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.